sequence today because we are honored to have two special people with us, Nancy and Kathy, who belong to an organization called Rosie's Journey of Hope. And I would like them to come up and introduce themselves, and they can tell you what they do. Ladies.
Good morning.
Good morning.
My name is Kathy Calvin, and I'm the founder and president of Rosie's Journey of Hope.
And good morning. I am Nancy Miller, and I am actually on the board of Rosie's, and I volunteer for the program. Have been there about 4 years.
Yeah. Our program, I have a ranch, and what we do is I serve special needs children. I've been doing this for approximately 17 years. We found, just myself growing up, the horses are amazing animals, and so what I did was I put this ranch together in order to serve the special needs kids that otherwise wouldn't have this type of service available to them. The stories are amazing. We see miracles come out of our ranch, and the collaboration with a horse, with a child, it's just, you'll have to come out and see sometime and visit us and see what we do out there. Nancy might be able to give you a little insight of some of our sessions that we do.
So we do our therapy lessons usually just on Saturdays, and we work with a lot of different disabilities, but right now we seem to be serving a lot of children on the autism spectrum. So they don't have that connection, but they're able to connect with a horse. So we've had kids that come out that the first day we're fighting to even get them on the horse, to put a helmet on their head, and by the end of the lesson they are so relaxed and so enjoying it and have made that connection with the horse. They come out to us nonverbal, and after a couple lessons they're talking. The parents share with us how they have meltdowns, but they can hold up their boots or drive by the ranch and the children will calm down. So it's amazing to see what that connection with the horse can do social and emotionally for these children. And time again, we had a little guy yesterday who, he came last year and did great, but yesterday, his first lesson of the season, wasn't wanting to get on that horse. He was kicking and screaming and throwing a fit, but we know what a difference it's going to make just to get him on there. And we put them directly on the horse. We don't use a saddle because they feel that connection and that movement. Kathy was able to get him up there, and we immediately got that horse moving, and he calmed down and started interacting with us, was following direction and loving on the horse and petting on it. So it is amazing what the benefits are for these children and this therapy program.
Now, we want to thank you for what support you've given us and for having us here, because without the community, we wouldn't be in existence. So thank you.
Thank you. Yes.
Where are you located?
We are located in Oakdale. It's on Langworth. Let's see exactly.
Langworth, 630. Oh, and I can leave some brochures here if you'd like. Yeah, I have some brochures. And we have a website, rosiesjourneyofhope.org.
And we serve children, but we also serve
Adults.
So
Yeah.
Sometimes people just stop by because they might be having a hard time. And for me, I started volunteering through my daughter, and she had a friend that was actually, Kathy's a teacher, and was one of her students. So I started going out there, and for me, it's changed my life. I have grown and become more confident in myself. So it's just a great program. I actually have my own horse now that lives there. So.
Yeah. And I'm not going to take a lot of time, so because I could talk all day about it. But I'm actually a registered nurse, and I'm a director of a nursing program. All my students come out to my ranch to learn communication skills. I use the horse, so I do workshops for them. So it's between the kids and the nursing staff, because they don't take enough time out for their patients. So I put this together, so we're really building and growing. So we invite you to come out sometime.
Thank you. There's another question in the back. Yes.
Do kids get to ride horses once in a while?
Who?
Do children get to ride horses?
Oh, yes.
Yeah, the children ride the
they
horses.
They ride the horse.
And we look at their IEP. So the children that we're serving with disabilities, I'm in the education field. I work for Head Start, so I'm familiar with that. And we always sit down with the parent and try and find out what their goal is.
Yeah.
What are they working on? And we try and support that through the therapy with the horses.
Is it only IEP kids?
No. We have kids out there that they have ADD, they're just stressed at school. I'd like to do an anti-bullying campaign out there because there's so much bullying. There's so much I want to do, but the bullying thing, yes. And so It's one thing at a time, one day at a time, so,
And so are you looking for volunteers?
all the time.
Always.
We can't function without volunteers.
Yes.
And so, yeah, if the community would love to come out and volunteer.
We're all about safety, so it takes four people to do one
One
lesson.
lesson, yeah.
So we need volunteers.
And there's not many of us left out there that do children. A lot of them are different now, so we're pretty much the only ones standing.
Very good. Well,
Thank you. We
Thank
took
you.
enough time.
we thank you for what you do. And
Oh,
this is
thank you
our
so
prize to
much.
You guys.
Thank
you.
you.
For,
We're actually heading out right now to go
get
look
another
at a
therapy
therapy
horse.
because we have so many clients right now. We need another horse. Thank you.
okay. And thank you, ladies. Okay. We're on for some music.
Thanks for coming. We're going to prepare for meditation now. Now on land and sea descending brings the light its peace profound. Let our time of prayer be blending with the holy calm around. Jubilate, 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 amen. Let our time of prayer be blending with the holy calm around. As the light does now surround us, lo, eternal stars arise. Hope and faith and love rise glorious, shining in the Spirit's skies. Jubilate, 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 amen. Hope and faith and love rise glorious, shining in the Spirit's skies. Jubilate, 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 amen. Hope and faith and love rise glorious, shining in the Spirit's skies.
And we are now at that part of our service, and I hope I'm on. Am I? Yeah, maybe now. It echoes. We're at that part of the service for our beginning meditation. And for this Memorial Day weekend, as you settle into your chair in whatever way is comfortable for you, for there is no right way to sit in a chair. In fact, I know an entire generation that would rather sit on the floor under the chair than in the chair. And they meditate better than I do. But as you become comfortable, start the slideshow of everyone who has made transition and is not here as a physical presence. But think of each face and think of one or two words that describe that person for you. And if you were asked to say something about them, what is the most important thing that you would share about each person? So as we sit in the silence, run your own personal slideshow. Think of each person. Thank each person for being in your life and bringing you to where you are today. And as we begin to come back into this room and the awareness of our surroundings and our physical presence, know that we have paid homage to those who have made their transitions, whoever they may have been. And since you remember them and you know their stories, know that they are still with us in your heart and in the hearts of family and friends and acquaintances, peers, fellow employees. Keep the stories alive. Now as we return, kind of stretch and open our eyes, I apologize to the youngsters because you probably ran through your slideshow halfway through the silence and didn't know what to do. And then I apologize to those who are my age because you didn't get through the whole slideshow. And the bane of becoming older is that slideshow keeps extending. It gets longer and longer and longer. And I would tell you a humorous story for my mother and my aunt. I think I've shared this with you. But I did a call one time to an elderly lady, and I needed to do death notification for her to other people. And she handed me her address book. Every name in this book, under every letter of the alphabet, was crossed off. And on the front cover, there were 2 names. And out of her entire family and circle of friends, those are the only 2 people that were still alive that she contacted. And I sat there and looked at that book and had a heck of a time not crying because that was my mom and my aunt's phone book. I was like, holy cow. So anyway, today is Memorial Day. Well, tomorrow is Memorial Day. This is our weekend. And in talking to some people, I discovered that there is a lot of confusion between Veterans Day and Memorial Day. Veterans Day, which is November 11th, technically 11 minutes after 11, the end of World War I, is a day set aside to actually walk up to a veteran and thank them, because they're alive. So we shake their hand, we talk to them, we pat them on the back, we give them hugs, we thank them again for their service, and that's what we do on Veterans Day. Memorial Day is not the day that I get recognized, because I'm still alive. I'm busy memorializing those who aren't here anymore. And there are a lot of them. Captains and lieutenants and Spec 4s and privates that didn't come home from our war. So it's my day for them. But I can't walk up to them. So I tell their stories. Sometimes I can tell the story to a class of 6th graders. I could tell the story here. And then there's a whole lot of stories that'll never be told unless I'm standing or sitting with another veteran who's been in combat. And then the story is about 1/10 as long as what I would tell you, because they know. I just have to say a word and they know. They say a word and I know what they did and how it worked. So that's what we do. So remember, today we're remembering people. Tomorrow we remember people. Next November, thank me for my service. And that's the way it should be. So here we are doing Memorial Day. So I'm going to give you a dictionary definition of a veteran, if you've ever looked it up, because we tend to think this is a day for the veterans. Okay, and it is. And the dictionary has only 2 definitions for veteran. The first one is a person who has long experience in a particular field. A person who has long experience in a particular field. So the synonyms in this case for veteran are old hand, past master, seasoned, adept, expert, experienced, practiced, senior. That's everybody, isn't it? I got grandkids that are experts at being grandkids. Got that? They are experts at being children. 4 of them are experts at being teenagers, much to the chagrin of their parents. So, and then, of course, we all know that those little kids that are experts at being kids discover logic. I told you so no longer works. And they be 3, 4, 5, but they've discovered logic. And unless you go back to their very first premise and debate that, you're not going to get any place. The repetition I get is from one of the 3-year-olds who has discovered logic. And you explain something, and he says, "What happens next? What happens next?" And you do, "What happens next?" This goes on for 50, 60 times before he goes off and does something else. So if a person has long experience or enough experience in a particular field to become any of these synonyms, they're a veteran. That's the first definition. The second definition is a member of the armed forces. A member of the armed forces. Somebody who has served in the Army, the Navy, the Marines, the Air Force, or the Coast Guard. And they're a veteran. because they have become an expert in whatever field that is, or a field within that organization. So they're their expert also. So on Memorial Day, all of us knows veterans who have made their transition. We're not talking just about somebody in the military. We're talking about mothers and fathers, spouses, aunts and uncles, friends, acquaintances, peers at work. Anybody that hits that first definition is a veteran, and they are honored and memorialized this weekend and especially tomorrow. How do we do that? We tell their stories. We tell the stories. That's what we're supposed to do. Now, historically, the history of Memorial Day is only about 30-some years old. Wow. It's one of our newest holidays. Because on June 28, 1968, Congress established the observance of certain holidays on Monday. And you can think of the ones that fall on Monday. Thank goodness they didn't screw around with Christmas and Thanksgiving and Easter and New Year's, but all the others moved to Monday, didn't they? Yes, that was 68. Now, they gave the country a long time to get used to that. It actually became the law on January 1st, 1971. That's when we started celebrating the Mondays officially as a federal holiday. And then all the states followed suit, usually. Then in 1971, later on in the year, the President and Congress decreed that we would have Memorial Day falling on that Monday, and that was a good thing, and it became the national holiday. So 71, 81, 91, 201, we're almost there. We're 30-some years that we've celebrated it. But when I was really tiny, growing up, Memorial Day wasn't called Memorial Day. But we always had the big family picnic, the big first picnic of the year, first family reunion of the year. We went out and we celebrated outside near the cemetery. We never did anything before Memorial Day because in Colorado you don't do anything outside until after the ants have come out and start eating the ticks. And when that happens, then you can go out and have your picnics on the grass without fear. Of course, in my day, there was only one thing that we feared, Rocky Mountain spotted fever. That was it. So here we are, little kid. Wow, this is Memorial Day. Because it was beginning to be called that. All of the older people in the family called it Decoration Day. Decoration Day. They're not having any of this Memorial Day stuff. This is why we were by the cemetery. We were going to do something that required decoration. So, at the end of the Civil War, or after the end, in both the North and the South, probably widows and mothers started going to the grave sites and putting flowers on them and doing their remembrance of that Civil War veteran that died. In the North, we were honoring the Union soldiers, and in the South, we were honoring the Confederate soldiers. And that's how it worked. In 1866, a general named John Logan, who was the head of a organization that honored Civil War veterans, decided that there should be a National Day of Remembrance, which he decided would be held on May 30th. Why May 30th? Because that is a date that has no relationship to any skirmish or battle fought during the Civil War. It wasn't the date of Bull Run. It wasn't the date of Gettysburg. It wasn't the date of Sherman reaching Atlanta. It had no bearing. So he picked that date because it was totally neutral. Absolutely. And he called for the purpose of this day was strewing with flowers or otherwise decorating the graves of comrades who died in defense of their country. Now, he's speaking to the surviving veterans. Trust me, he was also speaking to the wives and the mothers and the children, the whole bit. So the very first one was held that year at Arlington National Cemetery. So that's where it was. And that started Decoration Day. Now, by the 1890s, all of the northern states had made Decoration Day an official state holiday. And southern states were doing the exact same thing. They were making it official holidays. The difference was that the northern states always did May 30th. The southern states, being much more free-thinking, decided that whatever day fit the state's calendar, that would become their Decoration Day. So up until World War I, you could travel through in a year, start in Florida, travel all through all of the southern states. And you could attend at least 10 Decoration Days. At least 10 in that year. So that's what they were doing. And then, of course, during the 1890s, it became a Remembrance Day that was taken over by the women to do the work. No surprise there. They were the survivors. They were the ones that had the most to remember. So they and their children began to doing the bit about that. So there we were, doing all of this. Now, someplace, even before the 1890s, in both the North and the South, these people began to realize that there were graves in the cemetery that didn't get decorated. They weren't strewn with flowers because they were the other guy. So in the North, Confederate soldiers who were buried in cemeteries, the Union people didn't want to decorate their graves. In the South, the Confederate people didn't want to decorate a Union grave, but by 1890, when the women started to the forefront of this, they didn't care. Every grave was strewn with flowers and decorated. Didn't matter. And that was happening in both the North and the South. So after World War I, the South was going their way, we were going our way. And then we get to this turning point in 71 where they declared it would be Memorial Day. Now, someplace along the line, President Johnson and Congress illustrated quite adaptly how the winner gets to write the history. Okay? So the official Decoration Day, the first one, occurred in Waterloo, New York on May 5th, 1868. Wow, General John Logan. Whoop. We made him the official. Was this happening in the South? Absolutely. Did they win? No. They didn't get to write the history. Only the winner writes history. So now we've got our Memorial Day. We know why it's on Monday. As I was growing up, Memorial Day, which had started to honor veterans, we're going to decorate their graves. We're going to honor veterans. In my generation, it began to shift to honor everybody. So we went to the cemetery not only to honor the graves of people that fought with my Uncle Billy in World War I and people that fought with my dad in World War II and people that fought with cousins in Korea. We began to also make sure we were honoring and strewing flowers on and decorating my sister, my aunts and uncles, anybody, teachers, doctors, and lawyers were a little iffy. But, we were decorating everybody, and that's how I grew up. Memorial Day was when you honored anybody that hit the first definition of a veteran, as well as the veterans. Then we get the first war in Iraq and the second war in Iraq, and before them we actually went to Afghanistan, and we're still there. So with more soldiers coming home wounded and a whole lot of soldiers coming home killed in action, Memorial Day began to shift back to a day where we want to honor our veterans. Now, young people probably don't have any problem with the shift. If you were raised like I was, well, it used to be, but then it became a memorial for everybody, and now we're back to saying this is for the veterans. And that's a good thing, because veterans don't get recognized very often. Hate to say that. You know how I came home. The people in the airport were chanting and not throwing flowers, not saying thank you. I was a murderer and a pig and whatever else. Those were the nice words. They were usually prefaced with things like SOB. And that's how I came home. So I took off the uniform and never made it a point to really tell people, unless they were other veterans, that I had been there and done that. Too many people didn't like it. So I'm glad that we're back to honoring the veterans. Of course, I'm still waiting for my parade, but yeah, what the heck. I get recognized, so life is good. So how do we honor people? I don't know. I know how I do it. Look around the room. Everybody in this room is somebody who has lost a veteran. Somehow. By that first definition. And then, wow, the second one comes in, and that's nice too. But everybody in this room's lost a veteran. And that was usually somebody they loved or were very close to or friends with, because they were an expert. They were an old hand. They taught. They retired. They transitioned. They were a doctor. They nurtured, made their transition. They were an hourly worker their entire life. But they were an expert in that job, whatever that was that they were paid by the hour to do. They were an expert. They were experienced. They were veterans, just like a soldier. One thing about a soldier is we didn't have to spend 20 years in a career to become a veteran. We just had to be shot at a few times. And then we became veterans. Or we served in the armed forces during a time of warfare or during a time of peace, and we become a veteran. And that's how it works. And veterans see other veterans, and we look at the ribbons. And we know who we're going to talk to seriously and who we're going to honor for their service and say, hey, thank you for serving. But we look at the ribbons first, because that tells us if they're one that can understand my story. If they can't, it's thank you for your service. My cousin attended a really heart-wrenching funeral a couple of weeks ago. And a friend of his for many years who was in Vietnam in the same division I was in. And he flew helicopters. And part of the service was a Navy commander read and interpreted his DD-214, which is your entire military history. If you earned it, you did it, you served it, it's on your 214. Everything you need to know about a service person is on the 214. And that's the first time I've ever heard that somebody actually incorporated it into the service. And he said, no dry eyes. So we're all survivors. How do we do this? How do we do it after we hear taps? How we do it is we tell the stories. It's not the stories for me and my wife. It's the stories for the grandkids. Because my kids have heard the stories. My actual children, they all know the stories. Grandkids don't. And they need to know those stories. When you die, you leave your rent-a-body, and we don't know where you go. But as long as there is somebody alive who knew you personally, you're in the first stage of death. Well, the second stage, actually. Maybe it's first stage. But when the last person who knew you personally dies, now you're in the second stage. And that is because there's lots of people that know your story. And so the story is being told, and it's passed down, and it's being shared. And the little kids are learning the story. You're still, that person is in my heart. It's in their hearts. The good, the bad, the funny, the sad, it's all there. And when the last person who knows the last story dies, then that person is truly gone. If you understand that person's going to be here for decades in our hearts, they're not truly gone. So tell the stories. Tell the stories. That's what we do. Namaste. Have a wonderful Memorial Day tomorrow.
We are who only have one wing. All angels searching for each other. All angels who cannot reach the sky, because we need each other to fly. Do you know that there are angels in our midst? Can you hear them? Can you feel them? They're all around you, with you every day. Do you see them, or do you look the other way? It's that man that I forgot to kiss as I hurried out the door, or that stranger that said hello that I ignored. They are angels. We are angels. We are all angels who only have one wing. All angels searching for each other. All angels who cannot reach the sky, because we need each other to fly. My life gets so busy, time goes by so fast. I rush through the day trying to make each moment last. But when I take the time to look around, I see sweet angels are smiling back at me. Everywhere at any time, I need to open up my eyes and see the beauty that surrounds me. And now I realize we are angels. We are angels. We are all angels who only have one wing. All angels searching for each other. All angels who cannot reach the sky, because we need each other to fly. We need each other to fly. We need each other to fly.
Good morning.
Morning.
These prayer requests are prayed for a month here by the prayer team at the church, which everyone is welcome to join. And then they're sent to Unity in Missouri, where they're prayed for another month by prayer people there. So they get a lot of prayer energy. Divine Mother, Heavenly Father, through these prayers, your love flows into our life, removing all obstacles, sicknesses, and blockages. Open our hearts to receive your love. Om, peace, amen.
Now it is time to take our offering in our hands. Well, so much for that. Brian, we had a new one. I don't know if it's new anymore. Let's see. Thunk, thunk. It has made it. Yay. All right. Our offering statement. Divine love through me blesses and multiplies all that I am, all that I have, all that I give, and all that I receive.
Please join me in singing If Love Is Why I'm Here. If love is why I'm here, let me be an open channel. If love is why I'm here, let me give and then receive. If love is why we're here, let us be an open channel. If love is why we're here, let us give and then receive. If love is why I'm here, let me be an open channel. If love is why I'm here, let us give and then receive.
Father, Mother God, thank you for these offerings and these blessings that you have given to Unity of Modesto, given up freely and in love. And today you've seen one of the places where these tithes go to assist others. And it's good to have a face and an organization and an idea of where our money goes for and helps the community. So thank you, God, for these blessings that flow through us out into Modesto and the surrounding communities. We are blessed. So it is. Amen.
Amen. And now we're going to form a circle and say the prayer for protection, and then we will sing the peace song. I think you need to come into the middle. Can you just walk forward to the center? There you go. Okay, so the prayer for protection. Together, the light of God surrounds us. The love of God enfolds us. The power of God protects us. The presence of God watches over us. Wherever we are, God is, and all is well. And let there be peace on earth, and let it begin with me. Let there be peace on earth, the peace that was meant to be. With God as Creator, family all are we. Let us walk with each other in perfect harmony. Let peace begin with me. Let this be the moment now. With every step I take, let this be my joyous vow. To take each moment and live each moment in peace eternal. let it begin.